Hi everyone, my name is Haley McMurray and this is my Microteach on service animals versus emotional support animals. Let's get started. The lesson objectives. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify 5 different types of disabilities covered under the ADA, and you should be able to explain the key differences between service animals and emotional support animals. Puppies! This entire lesson is about puppies, so get excited. Oh, and kitties. Kitties are there too. And miniature horses. Yeah, no, I'm not joking. We'll talk about that in a minute. So now that I have your attention, what is a disability? A disability is an individual with a documented physical or mental impairment that substantially limits them in one or more major life activities. And that is the definition given by the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. So we'll talk about that a bit. Major life activities, those are things like seeing, hearing, learning, reading, communicating. You get the idea. There are 3 primary disability rights laws that govern compliance. Section 504 of the Rehab Act specifies that individuals with disabilities may not be discriminated against by any program or activity that's federally funded. That basically covers all of higher education, right? The ADA of 1990, again, that just flat out says you cannot discriminate against someone with a disability or someone who is associated with someone with a disability. And then the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination against disabilities in housing, so private or public, any kind of housing. For our purposes, we're going to talk about student housing and how that is relevant to emotional support and civil service animals law. All right, the 3 main categories of disabilities: learning disabilities, psychological or psychiatric, depending on who you're asking, disabilities, and physical disabilities. Examples of different disabilities. And if you click back and you want to see again, oh, I guess you can't click, but if you look back on this page, you'll see learning disabilities are in red, psychological are in blue, and physical are in green. So I use that same color coding on this next page so you can see what category these disabilities fall under. So PTSD, MS, MDD, ADHD, diabetes, paralysis or missing limbs, ASD, autism spectrum, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. I don't know what that says because my thing's in front of it, probably depression, dyscalculia, cancer, blind vision impairment, epilepsy, dyslexia, and generalized anxiety disorder. Oh, you know what? I think it says deaf and hard of hearing. So those are just examples. All right, that was a mouthful. So is everyone still with me? Cute puppies, cute puppies. Okay, so how do animals help individuals with disabilities? The 2 main types, obviously, are service animals and emotional support animals. If you really want to be specific, we could say that there's a 3rd type of animals that help people, and they're called pets. But they are not really discussed in this lesson because they're not specific to individuals with disabilities. So service animals, the 2 key things I want you to remember from this lesson about service animals: they have to be specially trained, and they have to perform a task that mitigates one or more symptoms of a disability, right? So specially trained, perform a task. Also, service animals can only be a dog or a miniature horse. Told you we'd get back to that. Okay, and an ESA, an emotional support animal, any animal that provides comfort, that helps alleviate symptoms of a disability, usually a psychological disability, like depression, anxiety, phobias. 2 main things here. Again, an ESA does not have any special training and does not perform any special tasks related to a disability. They are comfort animals only. So we've got 3 pictures of animals here, and we're thinking, which ones are ESAs? Which ones are service animals? Which ones are pets? Your guess is as good as mine, except for Rover at the top there with his little vest. Now, Rover doesn't need a vest though, right? In order to be a service animal, there are requirements. One of them is not to wear a cute vest, but a lot of owners do because it helps prevent people from asking questions about their disability or about, can I pet your dog? But we see that he's performing a task specifically related to a disability. He's pushing the door open. Then we have a cute kitty, which I think I covered up her face. Can I move this? Oh, I moved me. There you go. Sorry, guys. All right, so we've got a kitty here who could be an emotional support animal. We don't know. And then there's a whole bunch of pets down here. The only pets down at the bottom that could be service animals are what? If you said dogs, you're right. Only the dogs that are shown here can be service animals that can be trained to alleviate symptoms of a disability with a specific task, right? So how do we know then? How do we know? First, we have to learn how to click our computer. All right, service animals. These are okay questions we can ask. If you're a professor, a student walks into your room and has an animal, and when I say walk, I mean this student does not physically appear to have a disability. So they have an invisible disability. So 2 questions that you can ask that student. 1, you can say, Gina, is that animal required because of a disability? Don't change the language. Don't get in trouble. Just ask, is that animal required because of a disability? And 2, what task or tasks does that animal do? What task is that animal trained to do for the disability? That's it. That's about as much as you can ask. If you have more questions, you can call their disability services counselor. You can ask those same questions, probably ask them more, but those are the only 2 they'll answer for you, right? Why would Gina choose to refuse to answer that question? Well, Gina has that right. If she refuses to answer that question, it's most likely because it could disclose her disability, which under the ADA, she does not have to do. So do your due diligence, but err on the side of caution. If you have additional questions, ask her counselor, and she can hopefully, or he can hopefully help you be more comfortable with the situation. Service animals, questions you cannot ask. No. You cannot ask Gina what her disability is. You cannot ask her if she has proof, if she has a doctor's note, a vest for her dog, certification papers. You may not ask that. Unless you are her disability services counselor or coordinator, you may not ask anything other than those 2 previous questions. Is the animal required because of a disability, and what tasks does the animal provide? Other than that, err on the side of caution. Go to her counselor and ask those same 2 questions, because that's all they're going to give you. But basically, having a pretty simple understanding of this will help prevent those kind of awkward situations. It's my hope, at least, right? So what tasks do service animals provide? As you can see, they're innumerable. Physical disabilities and psychological disabilities. Handlers all benefit from having a service animal if they're trained to do these specific types of tasks. So we can see there's blood sugar for diabetes, epilepsy. You can see the seizures on there, assists with mobility if you're in a wheelchair, deaf and hard of hearing. They can alert their owner, their handler, to auditory stimuli. For psychological disabilities, they can deter inappropriate behavior. They can calm an individual who's having a panic attack, or even move them to a new location that's more conducive to their disability, at least at that moment. So, and again, the tasks must be directly related to a disability. So ESAs versus pets, we run into this a lot. ESAs, you have a documented disability from a medical provider. You have a letter stating that you need that animal to mitigate, to alleviate one or more of the symptoms of your disability. And the Fair Housing Act makes it so that you can have that animal living with you with the appropriate documentation. No laws apply to pets, unfortunately. So service animal, 2 big differences in higher education. Service animal can go anywhere in public, on campus with their handler. And they can also live in the student housing with their handler. Emotional support animals may not go anywhere on campus, but can live in student housing with proper documentation. What are the responsibilities of handlers? Clean up your poop, clean up after your animal, make sure they're house trained, that they're under your control, that they're trained and vaccinated. So time to test your understanding. 5 qualifying disabilities under the ADA. Hopefully you can think of all 5. If not, I would be so excited if you wanted to go back and watch that section again. 5 disabilities, there are so many. And what are the key differences? There are 2 things I wanted you to remember. What were they? Service animals, number 1, they're specially trained, if I can get the words out. And number 2, they perform a task. ESAs provide comfort. Okay. If you have any other questions, go to your disability services office or their website or look up some of these links. Hope this was helpful. Looking forward to your feedback. Thanks.